Okay, we're back, and hope you guys remember a little bit about what Ivy and Bean were trying to do, so they can get their cheese. And they're trying to sell things, and I guess they had a little accident when they tried to make some potion. Dropped it on the school ground in the breezeway, and it broke all over the place. I think that's where we ended up, uh, ending with the story. So we're going to continue on right now, and let's go breaking the news. That afternoon, Bean's dad wandered into the kitchen. Holy maloli cannoli, what are you eating? He squawked. Murmacarunch, said Bean. Her mouth was full. Flip was a favor. Graham cracker sandwich, explained Ivy, with maple syrup and peanut butter. Wow, said Bean's dad. He sat out the table and watched. Bean swallowed. It took a long time. Finally, she said, Dad, can we have some money? You get an allowance. Bean sighed. No, I don't. Not for 2 more months. Don't you remember? His eyes got narrowed and he remembered. Serves you right. Bean didn't want to talk about that. Quickly she asked, But what if I need some money? Earn it, he said. When I was a kid, I didn't get extra money from my parents. If I wanted a comic book, I had to buy it myself with money I earned myself. But how did you make the money, Dad? Did you have a job? Sure, I had a bunch of jobs. I washed my father's car, for instance, and mowed the lawn and vacuumed the house. And there was the newspaper, too. Ivy and Bean looked at each other. Car, mouthed Ivy silently. We'll wash your car for $10, said Bean. No, said Father. What do you mean, no? Yelped Bean. You just told us we should make money by washing cars. Hello, do you remember the time you washed the house? Do you remember what happened in the basement, he said. No water. Bean rolled her eyes. Okay, lawn. Ha! Her father snorted. You think I'm going to let you drive a lawnmower? Think again. Vacuuming? Said Ivy. Excuse me, he said. Aren't you the ones who vacuumed up the tuna salad? Bean sighed deeply. Fine. What was the newspaper? I made a newspaper, said Dad. He smiled. It was called The Explosion. Cool. Did it explode? Bean asked. That sounded like a pretty good newspaper. No, that's just what it was called, her dad said. He leaned back in his chair and stared into the space. It was about all the stuff that happened in my neighborhood. You know, who got in a dog, who'd fallen off the bike, that kind of news. He started to look dreamy. It was great. Everyone wanted it. I charged $0.25 a copy, which was a lot of money back then. I went to all the houses in my neighborhood. I remember exactly what I said, too, I said. Hello, I'm David. Do you want to know what's going on in the world around you? Subscribe to The Explosion, and you'll learn all about the thrilling events that happened on Aspen Avenue. Plus, you'll be helping to keep a neighborhood child off the streets. What's subscribe mean? Asked Ivy. That means they gave me the money. Bean's dad still looked dreamy. And then I brought them the newspaper when it was done. Bean sat up straight. They gave you the money first? Yup. How much money did you make? Asked Bean. Lots, she said. I don't remember. More than $10? I guess, she said. Everyone bought it. Dad, said Bean, let me get this straight. You went around your neighborhood asking for money and people just gave it to you? You didn't even have to give them the explosion first? Her dad shook his head. No, they gave me the money and then I made the newspaper. Ivy looked at Bean. It sounded too good to be true. Are you sure, Dad? Sure, I'm sure, he said. That's what subscribing is. Bean looked at Ivy and shrugged. Dads don't lie. Both girls stood up. Thanks for making such a great snack, Dad. See ya, said Bean. Wait, don't you want to hear about what I wrote? Asked Bean's dad. But Ivy and Bean were already gone. Bean sat down with a thump in her basket chair. Bet we could charge $1. Your dad only charged $0.25, Ivy reminded her. She was stretched out on the floor. But that was back in the old days, said Bean. And besides, our newspaper will be great. It'll be worth $1. What should we call it? Asked Ivy. The Explosion, said Bean. No, that would be copycatting, Ivy said. Okay, Bean said. How about the Wax? After all, wax was the whole point of the newspaper. Ivy frowned. I don't think most people like wax as much as we do. Well, you think of something. I am thinking, Ivy said. She put her feet up on Bean's wall so that all the blood would go into her head and help her brain. How can blood go in your head help your brain? I don't know. Suddenly, Bean slid out of her basket chair and collapsed onto the rug. The flipping pancake. Get it? Because it's pancake court. Isn't that great? Sometimes her ideas were so good she amazed herself. The flipping pancake, said Ivy. The flipping pancake. She took her feet down off the wall. It's perfect. Everyone who lives here will buy it. We'll be rich, 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 cackled Bean. We'll be rolling into wax, cackled Ivy. They were all so happy about thinking about making a newspaper. So, the first stop was Kayla's house. Kayla was only 2, so she couldn't read the flipping pancake. But Kayla had parents. Both Kayla's parents were named Jean, which Bean thought was hilarious. Jean the girl answered the door. Hi, Bean, she said. What can I do for you? A terrible scream came from upstairs. Is that Kayla? Asked Ivy. Is she okay? Asked Bean. She's fine, said Jean. She's napping. Bean cleared her throat. It was time for her to speak. Hello, I'm Bean, she said. Another terrible scream came through the house. Bean talked louder. Would you like to know the latest exciting news about Pancake Court? For only $1, you can get one thrilling issue of the Flipping Pancake, and you'll be helping to keep 2 neighborhood children off the streets. She smiled at Jean with all her teeth, just like the people on television. All for the bargain price of $1, said Ivy. That was her part. Upstairs, something heavy crashed onto the floor. Together, Ivy and Bean began to sing, Get the news of Pancake Court, Pancake Court, Pancake Court, all the news of Pancake Court for only $1. Ads on television usually had songs. Sure, Jean. Jean was looking at the ceiling. Sure, $1. Hang on a sec. She zipped down the hall. Ivy and Bean waited on the doorstep, listening to something hit a wall and break into lots of pieces. Jean zipped back. Great, here. She handed Ivy $1 just as the next scream blazed through the house. Bye, she said, shutting the door. They heard her running upstairs. Wow, aren't you glad we decided not to babysit? Said Bean. Ivy nodded and stuck the $1 in her pocket. $1 down, 9 to go. The next house was Mrs. Trans's house. Mrs. Trans's yard had sparkly white stones and big silver bubbles and teeny fences around every rose bush. It looked like someone nice lived there. But that was a big lie. If Bean even so much put one foot on Mrs. Trans's pink front path, Mrs. Trance whipped out the front door and started yelling. Forget it, not worth it. Bean nodded. Whew. They moved on to Jake the teenager's house. Jake the teenager was in the garage beside his house. They knew he was in there because loud music with bad words in it was leaking out the garage windows. Jake the teenager didn't seem like the type to be interested in the flipping pancake. So Ivy and Bean didn't go to the garage. They went to the front door of the house. Bean was surprised that Jake, the teenager's dad, heard the doorbell over the music. But he did. Bean hollered her speech as loud as she could, and Jake, the teenager's dad, nodded and smiled. But just when Ivy was about to say, all for the bargain price for $1, a really amazingly bad word came flying out of the garage, and she lost her mind. "Give us some money," she screeched. Jake, the teenager's dad, nodded very fast and pulled $3 out of his pocket. "Go, go," and ran away. He waved his hands, shooing them away before they could hear any more bad words. They didn't even get to do their song. When they got down to the sidewalk, Bean looked at the $3. "Do we have to give him 3 copies of the flipping pancake?" "No," said Ivy, she thought. "I think he was just extra to forget about that bad word." "It's working," said Bean. "I can't even remember it." Ivy and Bean looked at each other and giggled. After Jake, the teenager's house, came Fester, the dog's house. No one was home but Fester. He howled when they rang the doorbell, but he couldn't answer. Next, Ruby and Trevor's mother gave them $1 before Bean had even finished her speech. Of course, Ivy's mother subscribed. She paid her for 2 copies. Kathy and Leanna's father said they'd always wanted to know what was going on in Pancake Court. And Dino and Crummy Matt's house, their mother said she wished that her children were so hardworking. She said it really loud so Dino and Crummy Matt could hear her over the video game. Ivy and Bean smiled modestly as she handed them $1. It was easy giving speeches, singing songs, taking money. It was easy and fun. "I don't know why Mom and Dad complain about going to work," said Bean as they left Mr. Columby's house. "It doesn't seem like such a big deal to me." "Careful of the car," yelled Mr. Columby from his front porch. He was always worried about his car. Bean waved and smiled and stuffed Mr. Columby's $1 in her pocket. "I bet we could make even more money," said Ivy, looking at Sophie W.'s house. "Why? We have $10. That's enough for 2 bags of Belladone cheese," Bean pointed out. "I guess you're right," said Ivy. "We don't want to get worn out." "I can't believe that's what you wanted to buy with your hard-earned money," said Bean's dad. "Cheese?" Bean and Ivy didn't answer. They were happy. Each of them had a little red bag of Belladone cheese hooked over her wrist. The bags bounced against their legs as they walked across the parking lot. It felt nice. "Why do you want cheese?" he asked. "We like cheese," said Bean. There was no reason to tell him about the wax. He wouldn't understand. "Especially low-fat Belladone cheese in a special just-for-you serving size," murmured Ivy, getting into the car. They sat quietly in the back seat as Bean's dad drove them home. They had planned everything out. They were going to wait until they got home to open their bags. They would each eat just 1 cheese ball that afternoon. Then they would switch off cheese days. Ivy was going to go first. Tomorrow she would bring a Belladone ball to school. The next day, Bean would bring a Belladone ball. The cheese bringer would split her wax with the non-cheese bringer. Ivy was going to use her half cube of wax to make a tiny voodoo doll. Bean wanted to squish hers in front of Vanessa. For 10 days, they were going to drive everyone in Emerson School crazy. It was going to be great. "So," called Bean's dad from the front seat, "when are you going to start your writing?" Ivy and Bean didn't answer. They were thinking about wax. "Girls." "What?" said Bean dreamily. "You're going to start writing when you get home, right?" he asked. "What?" "Stop saying what. Your magazine. You're going to start writing it today, right?" "Magazine?" The magazine, the newspaper, he yelled. The one you sold. The flopping pancake. Oh, yeah, that, Bean said. You don't have to yell. Well, are you going to start today? He was still yelling a little. After we have some cheese, said Bean. Maybe. Bean's dad pulled into the driveway. He stopped the car, and then he turned around to look at Bean and Ivy with narrow eyes. Before you have some cheese, he said. For sure. Dang. Okay, we did it. Can we have our cheese? Bean said, coming into the kitchen with Ivy. Where did you hide the bags? Her dad looked up from his computer. Let's see this newspaper first. Bean handed him a piece of copy of the paper. At top it said The Flipping Pancake in enormous pink letters. Below that were some other words. Bean's dad read them out loud. Everyone on Pancake Court will be happy to know that Ivy and Bean just got low-fat Belladone cheese and a special just for your size. It cost $5 a bag, but it was worth it. Weather today, cloudy. He looked up at Bean. See, we did the weather too. Can we have our cheese? Bernice Blue, do you really think this is your best work? He asked. Oh, trick question. Grown-ups were sly. If you said no, they got mad. If you said yes, they got mad. But you had to say something. Yes, Bean said firmly. I don't think so, said her dad. He gave her a serious look. Bean tried another way. She made her eyes big. We did the best we could, she said in her little voice. Ivy made her eyes big too and nodded sadly. Her father frowned at her. I don't think so, he said again sternly. Listen, girls, you promised people news about Pancake Court. You took their money. You have to deliver what you promise. Once you've made a real newspaper with real news, you can have your cheese. Not before. That's not fair, cried Bean. It's perfectly fair, he said, frowning some more. How are we supposed to find news about Pancake Court? Bean squawked. Nothing ever happens around here. Nonsense, her father said. Hundreds of things happen all the time on Pancake Court. Your job is to go out there and get the story. He waved his hands. Go, discover, write. It's almost night, said Bean, stalling. Nice try. It's afternoon. Get out there. He sounded very enthusiastic. Find out what makes Pancake Court tick. And then we get our cheese, Ivy asked. Give us news, give us truth, and you will get cheese, he said, thumping his fist on the kitchen table. Bean rolled her eyes. Come on, she said to Ivy. Let's go get the stupid story. And we'll take a stop from right there, and we'll catch it next time. Kind of take a little break from the reading. But keep in mind, next time the story will be out, we'll do a little review before we continue on about Bean and Ivy and Belladone cheese. I got my little bookmarker so I can save my spot. There we go. Pop, ready to go. Bye.